Hi, my name is Jenny Lauren Dowden for Conduit News, and today we have Pat Gill joining us. She is chair of the Izard County Republican Committee to talk about some recent events that have happened there with their committee. Hi, Pat. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Jenny.
Most recently, as of last week, you as a committee voted to not recommend Senator James Sturch in the upcoming election, and I believe that vote was unanimous. Will you tell us about that?
Yes. Let me tell you what led up to it first. We had been questioning Senator Sturch. I remember back in the spring, I think when he walked out of a vote for the critical race theory, I sent him a text message complaining about that. A couple of my committee members did the same. So we had been kind of watching his voting record, not to the extent that we began to watch it as things started to develop. But I had talked to one other committee chairman, and that was Charles Fuquay in Independence County, because that's where Senator Sturch lives. And he told me that there had always been a problem. I think they had discussed it with him in the past. And we just sort of left it alone. We were hoping that we could find a candidate that would be more conservative and would vote our values. And I think we may have that in another candidate, but we'll talk about that later. So we had that discussion. And then I got a call from Charles probably 3 weeks ago, and he cited the rule that whereby with a 2/3 majority of the committee vote, we could actually vote not to recommend a candidate. And I looked at that and thought about what he said. And he said, I've already discussed it with my committee. We consider this to be an egregious act. He is not voting his constituency. He is not voting according to the Republican platform. And we are going to take a vote. So I wasn't able to attend that meeting, though I had planned on it. But the next morning he called and told me that it was a unanimous vote. So I talked to my executive committee and brought all the facts to them what I knew. I got his voting record, his being Senator Sturch, and we looked at it and we decided as a committee we would do the same thing. So we had our February meeting, which was, I guess, last Tuesday night on the 8th. I brought it before the committee in the form of a PowerPoint. I have a very talented young woman on our committee. She developed the PowerPoint. I had the talking points to go with the video, and we read the voting record. And I'm going to tell you something. By the time we got finished, because we don't really have a platform, and the visions, you kind of have to stand up to see the video. I had everybody in the room standing up when I called for the vote not to recommend. There were motions everywhere. And we voted unanimously 48-0 not to recommend Senator Sturch. And that was based on his record. If you'd like me to go through that, I can do that. It's entirely up to you. I don't know how much time we have.
Well, we can include that, but were you surprised by how that was received there towards the end of the presentation? You said people by then were coming from the back of the room to see. What did you think about that?
You know, I had some trepidation in the beginning because I didn't know how the committee would receive it. And an interesting fact, we had just voted on 6 new members before we took the vote. So I thought, gee, these people are brand new to the committee. We've just voted them in. They're going to see this and think, what's going on here? Every one of those people, based on the facts that they were presented, voted unanimously. And I think I was overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed. I don't want to say that I expected someone to protest, but I did think we might have a little bit more discussion, but it was so self-evident because the PowerPoint said it all. and there's a legal term, and I'm not a lawyer, and I don't remember my Latin very well, but the term is re ipsa loquitur, I think, and it means the act stands for itself. So once you see that in black and white, I mean, it's not difficult to come to a decision, but I don't want to leave the impression that it was something that we did without giving it a lot of thought.
Well, and speak more about that. Some would say, man, that is a really drastic move that Izard County took. What would you say to that?
I would say that it wasn't a drastic move because it was well considered and well thought out and well researched. It's not something that we decided to do overnight. I think, and this is just my opinion, of course, I believe that there might be other committees out there who would like to do the same thing, but maybe they needed someone to set a standard. I'm not sure if that's correct or not. I've talked to a couple of county chairs, and both of them have said, we have thought about that. Not necessarily with Senator Sturch, but they mentioned some other legislators. And here's the thing, Jenny. Every meeting that I have, I have a big, I don't know if you can see this or not. This is just the Republican, our principles. But the first thing I did when I became chair, I went to a local printer and I had probably 48 by 30 card, and it's printed on there in color. And I bring it out for every meeting. And I've had so many comments on that because I think we all know what our principles are, but if you see them there, and so our speakers look at those and know that they are being not vetted so much, but we look very carefully at those principles. And if we can't send legislators who believe in those principles, then why are we even here as a committee? Because it's a lot of work.
That's a great point. Well, let me ask you about this. So most recently, the chair of the Republican Party of Arkansas informed all 75 county committees that actions such as what your county took, that could be prohibited favoritism, and that the rule has limitations. And then it goes on to say, that rule was only meant for egregious behavior or egregious action.
You had to be a member of KKK.
Right. Well, and so, my question would be, and I think a lot of people would say, is it not the right thing to do to hold a legislator accountable if they are in complete violation of the party platform and principles? Is that not considered egregious behavior? When you're completely violating everything that you said that you would go and do in office?
That's exactly the way we felt. And that was the stance that we took. Define egregious behavior. The rule, as I read it from our rule book, is Rule Article 1, Section 5A1. If a Republican elected official consistently votes against the party platform according to the RPA rules, state executive committee and or the respective county committees by a 2/3 vote of the members present at any regular or duly announced special meeting may vote that a particular candidate is not recommended. And that's the rule that we went with. The email that followed from the state committee woman to all 75 county chairs would have you believe that it had to be something like a member of Antifa or a member of KKK. That's ridiculous.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. Do you feel as though there's a double standard between the establishment at times and what you and the grassroots and on the local level are trying to do? Do you feel like there's a little bit of hypocrisy there?
I do. I haven't been in this position long enough to know a lot about what goes on in Little Rock. I do know that I've seen and heard enough for my own opinion is, yes, there's a double standard. Now, how can you stand up there at a state meeting and vote on resolutions like we're a non-abortion county. We voted on all 4 of the resolutions that we brought before the district meeting in Batesville. My committee did. Now, how can you stand up there and say that we live or die by these principles, and yet when it comes to the sanctity of life video that was posted on the District 1 website, you know, the Rules Committee voted 7-1 for the chair to have to take that down. How can you say you're pro-life, anti-abortion, and yet the sanctity of life video is not it's not applicable to that? I don't understand that.
Does it seem as though at times the rhetoric is there, the campaign words are there, but when it comes time to really hold people accountable and show the votes, you know,
Yes,
they don't want that to happen.
Yeah, that's right. It's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen in June at the state convention. Like I say, I've heard other people. Now, I have to tell you, this is a pretty intimidating email that came from the chair. Pretty intimidating. I mean, there were bold letters in there, and, you know, I got the message. But you mentioned something in the very beginning about the committee, the county committee being the cheerleaders. I think in the past, and here again, this is just my first year to serve, I believe in the past, the county committees were just that. They were cheerleaders for candidates, and, you know, we collected the filing fees, and we had dinners, and we invited everybody, and we didn't hold anybody accountable. Well, the rhino thing has really gotten out of control. We have no Democrats running in this midterm election here. And I know that there are at least 2 people running for justice, JP districts, and 1 sheriff candidate. They're rhinos, but we don't really have a vetting system for that. And I approached one lady who joined our committee. She was a county assessor here and had been a Democrat for 30 years. And she came to a meeting, and I gave her the RPA rule book and invited her to join our party after she read the book. But in the course of a conversation, I told her that we would like to do some vetting that would just simply consist of my asking her some questions about how she felt about our principles. And she was offended. She was offended, and she said, well, maybe I'm not good enough to be in the Republican Party. And I, of course, you know, I said, that's not the point at all. The point is, I would be remiss if I just took carte blanche that you want to be a Republican. I think it's important that you know what our principles are, that you understand our platform, that you're willing to stand up for that. So this is a long way about telling you that I think that the county committees, the county, we are the place where rhinos are birthed. And we have to try to do everything we can to prevent that happening. When they do get into office, like James Sturch, then they have to be held accountable. How else are you going to do that if you don't do it through their voting record?
Well, Pat, let me ask you this. What would you say to other county committee chairs who have seen what your county has done? They are in a similar situation. What would you say to encourage them to bring forth that accountability?
I would say, let your conscience be your guide. If they're even considering it, there has to be that little bit of doubt. And my other part would say, what have you got to lose? You know, if you stand up for the party and you stand strong and you're that person that is willing to take the flack because you believe so strongly in our principles, I believe that you're going to see more of this. And I hope we do. I'm not a standard bearer. Please, Jenny, I'm not a standard bearer at all. But I'm not a go along, get along person either.
Right. Yeah. Well, Pat, we really appreciate you. Thank you for everything that you're doing. And just keep us posted. We'll follow this, and just again, really appreciate you joining Conduit today.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed it.